Welcome back to Fusion's Ramblings. In this series, we take a few minutes and we just talk about some random topics. And today, we're going to talk about something that's on everybody's mind. And I know I said I'd stay away from certain topics in this series, but I think we'll be okay with this one. And we're going to talk about COVID. Oh, yes, our friend Mr. COVID. um, So, obviously, of course, the whole pandemic or whatever you want to call it has certainly changed the way we do things in a day-to-day basis for most of us. And it depends, of course, on how you view it and how you what experiences you've had, with the situations that you're in, because there's a lot of different things that have happened. I mean, obviously, some people have been affected because they got sick. Some people have been affected because friends, family, loved ones have gotten sick, maybe even passed away, which is really unfortunate. Other people have been affected because of loss of job, or, difficult situations at home, whether it's, kids not being able to go to school, and so therefore you're concerned about their education and well-being, not being able to go out. And of course, your experience varies, depends on where you are at in the world, because every country has handled it differently, and, it's created a lot of hardships, but at the same time, I'm going to look at the positives as well. It has created some opportunities. Um, and so I'll talk about my experience first and then a few other things. Now, of course, I'm not in the US, and so my experience has been different from those of my family that are back home in the US and what they have experienced. And depending on what country you are from, your experience has been different as well. Uh, Now, obviously, here in Asia, in the Philippines, which is where I am, the experience has been heavily regulated by the government. In that, March 16th of 2020, the entire country virtually went into lockdown. And, lockdown means different things depending on where you're at. Even here, we've had different versions of the lockdown. In our case, the lockdown meant that you could not leave your home. Unless you were a frontline worker, and there were various industries that were classified as frontline workers. Some of the food industries, obviously health industries, and communication industries, were the main areas that were considered as priority industries. But you couldn't leave your home. And in some cases, depending on where you were at, you actually had to have a physical pass to leave your home. And even further than that, in some cases, only one person in your household could be designated to have that pass to leave your home. And that lockdown lasted almost 6 months, all the way up into June. Um, I guess not 6 months, 4 months or so, all the way up into June. And then, it changed, and there were different things that you could and could not do. If you went out, not only did you have to have a face mask, but you also had to have a face shield, which, I understand the reasons behind it, although, uh, for me, very uncomfortable. I wear glasses, and having a face mask is bad enough, and face shield is even worse. It just, every breath you take, it just fogs up your glasses and you can't see anything. It's really annoying. Um, but that's a minor inconvenience. The main thing was that all of a sudden, millions of people were out of work. The US, I know in the US, a lot of people lost their jobs or were, put on leave, or, whatchamacallit. Here it was just that all of a sudden you couldn't go to work. One day you could, next day you couldn't. And it lasted, months. And as a result, um, a lot of individuals couldn't make it. A lot of small businesses shut down, You know, even larger companies have shut down and struggled, um, and it's been rough. And of course, you know, it's been the same globally, right? So definitely a difficult experience just from that perspective. And of course, here we are several years later, and we're still experiencing, you know, lockdowns because of the variants. Uh, you know, we went through the basically the entire month of August again in a severe lockdown here in the capital city of Manila, um, where you know they really didn't want anybody to go out. It wasn't as bad as the first lockdown, you know, but there were some heavy restrictions again. Um, Now, benefits, you know, and this is going to kind of be weird, you know, for me, obviously, you know, I could keep working. Um, you know, I was able to work from home with my company and continue, you know, doing what I needed to do. Same thing with those that work underneath me, my team. And so that was an advantage. And I realized not everybody had that type of an advantage. You know, there was certainly an adjustment. I wasn't sure if I was going to like working from home. I mean, there's the obvious of like, man, everybody would want to work from home, but then you have to think about, you know, the experience of working from home and is it the right thing for you or not, right? At first, I wasn't really set up for it. You know, well, yes, I had internet and I worked from a laptop and already, so that was, you know, not an issue. Um, but I didn't have like an office space or desk or things like that that I could utilize, um, you know, for my work, and so I had to order stuff. At first, it was just you know working from the sofa or from the table, and then later, you know, I was able to get a desk and a chair, and you know, and later other things to just make it easier. And of course, you know, after a year, also was able to move into a larger place where we actually had an office in the home, which allowed you know myself to work even easier. Um, so that made it nice. Um, but then also from a standpoint of you know looking at uh, the experience of others have had, you know, it's been difficult. You know, people out of work, you know, not sure what to do. Were they going to lose their home? You're not able to pay bills. You know, not a fun experience. Now let's talk about another part, the vaccines. So, you know, obviously, vaccines started being produced and coming out, and you know, it's definitely taken a while. It hasn't been an easy experience. You know, there's certain countries I will say that have capitalized on the vaccines, um, and having them, you know, early on, whereas other countries, including my own, where I'm at now, we had to wait months before the first vaccines started coming in. And of course, you know, logistically, of course, there's huge hurdles there. Uh, but then also there's, you know, the story around being able to produce 8 billion vaccines times two in most cases, because unless you get Johnson & Johnson, and I know there's a couple others out there, you know, you need two doses at least. And if some of them, they're even asking, you know, thinking about a booster. And, you know, you got to remember there's 8 billion people or so on this planet. Um, Even if only half of them get vaccinated, you know, you're looking at 10 billion vaccine doses that have to be produced. That takes time, right? Um, I just got my first vaccine recently, Moderna, uh, and of course I still have to do the second dose once it's scheduled, uh, you know, but that took a long time to get that. Uh, And I know that there are individuals that are holding off for various reasons, not getting vaccinated. And, you know, they have their own reasons. And, Some of them I would say are good reasons and valid reasons, and I understand that because, they're concerned about health and they just want to make sure that the vaccine's safe and all that good stuff, and that's great. Um, and then there's people that I got to be really careful how I say this because I don't want to, create controversy on my channel, but there are individuals that say that the government shouldn't be telling me what to do. I shouldn't have to get vaccinated. It's my choice and things like that. And yes, it is your choice to get vaccinated. Um, but it's no different than getting, your shots when you're a child for chickenpox and measles and polio and all the other things that normally when you go and you get those shots early on, because you don't want to end up, with your child sick with any of those diseases, right? That's why vaccines exist. Or if you're getting your annual flu shot because you have a weak immune system, that makes sense, right? So, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about it, and then there's a lot of confusion, and of course, a lot of opinions. For me, I say that it is everybody's individual choice, and if you choose not to get vaccinated, that is perfectly fine. Um, just don't put anyone else at risk because you have to remember that it is not just you. It's not about you, it's about everyone else. And so while you may not get vaccinated and maybe you're lucky and you don't get sick and stuff like that, which is great, that doesn't mean you can't carry the virus and therefore get someone else sick or expose someone else that maybe doesn't have as strong of a immune system and they as you do or something, and so they get sick now because you um, didn't take precautions. And so that's where I think there's, you know, some decisions have to be made on an individual level, thinking about, you know, how do I protect myself and allow myself to make my own decisions, but also don't put others at risk. And so, I say that to my family and to others that, weigh that out, make the right decision, whatever it is. COVID is not going away. It is always going to be there, just like every other disease that exists in the world. They're all still there. The difference is that a lot of those diseases we have developed treatments for, whether it's vaccines or medicines, and so it's not really a big thing anymore. You don't see uh, issues around it or people getting sick as much because, we've developed, maybe not cures, but treatment for it. Uh, Whereas the same thing's going to happen with COVID. The virus is always going to be there. And then right now, of course, while we are slowly getting back to normal, there's the variants and there's spikes, and there's issues happening because of that. That is going to continue for, a good year to come. If we look at our closest, recent experience in the disease world, we could look at uh, the Spanish flu, which happened in 1920, 1918, 1920, somewhere around there. And, kind of the same thing. People started getting sick. People started wearing masks, even back then. Um, they were a thing. And then over time, they came up with a vaccine for it, and people would take that vaccine, but then people got complacent as well, and as a result, um, another wave hit, and millions more died. Spanish flu was much worse than the COVID virus because of, it killed a lot of people and because of the living conditions of the time and different things. Um, and it lasted 3.5 years before they finally got it under control. And things kind of went back to normal. So we've been with COVID for a year and a half, really, when you think about it. So most likely, at least in my opinion, we still got a whole year and a half to go before things start balancing out and getting back to normal. Um, and so for those of individuals that have been waiting and thinking that okay, it's not so bad, things are getting better, stuff like that, uh-uh. Better think again, because you're gonna have a bad experience at some point. It's going to remain an issue for everybody out there. And so, don't put others at risk just because you feel that it's not that big of a deal, right? You may feel that way, and that's fine, but just don't put others at risk. So anyways, yeah, um, sensitive topic, I know, and while I don't necessarily want to, talk about those type of things always on my channel, and I'm trying to keep this series much lighter, I just wanted to share that and make sure that, I won't say facts or anything like that because I'm not an expert, but we should all be aware of what is happening, what's going on, and then making decisions that are smart based around that. So anyways, that is today on Fusion's Ramblings, as I ramble on around about COVID. Thank you for joining me today, and have a great day.